Hare Krishna to one and all. Dadvat Pranam.
Hare Krishna devotees, welcome.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, kindly accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. Hare Krishna Maharaj, your speaker is muted.
Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripa tamakam vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Mishwaram Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nireshunjadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 coming days 2 sessions. Actually, we will have a longer session today, we can say 1 hour extra, more or less. And I will show on the screen what we have discussed so far in our lessons. 2 days last week, I think it was 2 days or maybe 3 days. We were together last week. And we were 2 days. In total, we were 5 days. Today is the 6th day. And so far, we covered the general introduction and overview of the Sri Upanishad, the invocation, and the Ishavasya principle, and the results of following and not following it in the beginning verses of the Sri Upanishad. Then we explored the inconceivable qualities of the Lord with his transcendental qualities due to his surrender to him. And just exploring the process of knowledge in comparison to ignorance, vidya and avidya.
Sorry to say, Maharaj, but your network is perhaps not stable. Your voice is breaking a lot.
Okay, let me check what's going on. Let me go there. Okay, I want to change the internet connection. It may break for half a minute, but that should be fine. So Can you hear me?
Yes, Maharaj.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Maharaj.
Is it better quality now?
Yes, Maharaj. Perhaps it is much better.
Much better, Maharaj.
I changed to the phone. The phone connection seems to be stronger than the wireless connection of the temple, because usually in the temple many devotees are around, so if they are plugging, they will be weakening our connection. So now I have directly with my personal phone, so it's better. Okay, good. So I don't know what you could hear from the explanation I was giving of what we covered so far in the previous lessons. I was summarizing what we did last week and this week in the classes and the topics we discussed up to the processes of vidya and avidya that we explored yesterday, referring to verses 9 through 11. And today, in the first part of the evening, we will be exploring the mantras 12 through 14, which are actually very similar to mantras 9 to 11. If you look at the way they are written, the composition of the mantras is equal, we can say. The only changes are the themes. If in yesterday's mantras, the theme was vidya versus avidya, knowledge versus ignorance, today the themes are worship of the absolute, Sambhuti, the complete person, versus worship of Asambhuti, entities who are not complete independently from God. As we were studying in the invocation mantra, we are complete beings because we come from the complete whole, but in order for ourselves
And then moving on to
truly feel complete, we do need to get the blessings and the support from the complete whole. Therefore, there is a difference of result between the worship of the absolute as opposed to the worship of any other living entities who are not absolute, who are relative to the Supreme. So this will be the theme of the first part of the evening. And then we will focus, after the break, we will focus on the last four mantras, which include prayers for the revelation of the Lord's transcendental form, plus prayers so that all the obstacles are removed, especially at the time of death, because the time of death is the most important, paradoxically, is the most important part of life. It is the assessment period or examination time. Everything is tested at the time of death. So these are today's topics. Let's go to this section. Mantras 12 to 14 compare Sambhuti, the complete personality of Godhead, and Asambhuti. So in these three verses, in the original verses and Srila Prabhupada's purport, we're going to explore these themes. The definitions of Sambhuti and Asambhuti and their respective expressions, different types of Asambhuti, for instance. Then we also will focus on in verse 12, very similar to verse number 9. In verse number 9, it was used the expression Vidyaya Rataha. Yahu Vidyaya Rataha. And here the expression is Yahu Sambhutya Rataha. So we will look at the meaning of those who supposedly are worshipping the complete personality of Godhead, the complete whole. And we will look more closely what is the meaning of it. Then we will also, as in the previous section, different results were attributed by cultivating knowledge and by cultivating ignorance. The results are very different, like the sunlight and the darkness of the dark moon night. So similarly, there are different results according to the type of worship we perform. If we worship Krishna, we achieve one result. If we worship the demigods, we achieve a different result. If we worship the demons, another result, and so on. Then we may explore further the meaning of Sambhavat, very much related to Sambhuti. And we will reflect a little bit more on a topic that was found in Manta 10, and we find it also in Manta 13. Itishu Shruma Dhiranam Yenastat Pichachakshire. The Dhiras, the transcendental personalities who are equipoise, completely balanced, they revealed the transcendental knowledge to the sages who are speaking in the Sri Upanishad. And finally, we will explore the need of knowing Sambhuti and Vinasha together to know the personality of Godhead and also to know his energies. And this should be understood together, as yesterday we were exploring that vidya and avidya, knowledge and ignorance, should be understood hand by hand in the proper perspective. Let's now go to the reading of the verses and translation. We will read the Sanskrit and the translation of the three verses, and then we will be going through the themes by looking to some parts of Srila Prabhupada's purports. If anyone likes to read, please activate your mic and you can participate.
Andam tamha pravashyanti ye sambhutim upasate tato bhuya iva te tamo ya u sambhutayam rataha. Translation: those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance and still more so do the worshippers of the impersonal absolute.
Thank you. We will do now mantra, the next two mantras. Yes, you can read, please.
Hare Krishna. Anyad eva yusambhavat anyad ahur asambhavat iti shushrumadhiranam yenas tadvichachakshire. Translation. It is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and that another result is obtained by worshipping that is not supreme. All this is heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it.
Thank you very much. Mantra 14. Who likes to read, please?
Sambhutam cha vinasham cha yastad bhayam saha vinashena mrityum tirtva sambhutyam mritam ashnute. Translation. One should know perfectly that the personality of Godhead Shri Krishna and his transcendental name, form, qualities and pastimes, as well as the temporary material creation with its temporary demigods, men and animals. When one knows these, he surpasses death and the ephemeral cosmic manifestation with it, and in the eternal kingdom of God he enjoys his eternal life of bliss and knowledge.
Thank you. So these are the translations, very, very clear. Did you notice the similarity to yesterday's verses? You can compare. If you look at the Sanskrit of verse 9 and 12, 10 and 13, and 11 and 14, you will see very striking similarities. Have you noticed this? Otherwise, you can check now if you have the book with you. Otherwise, we can look at it together. Maybe it will be easier if we do that. Let's go back to, you see, we take number 9. Andam tama pravishanti ye avidyam upasate tattobhuya ivate tamo yahuvidyayam rataha. And now we go to text number 12. Andam tama pravishanti, exactly the same. Yesam bhutim upasate, instead of yavidyam upasate, yesam bhutim upasate, tattobhuya ivate tamo, the same line. Yahu sambhutyam rataha, instead of yahu vidyaya rataha, yahu sambhutyam rataha. You see the similarities?
Yes, Maharaj.
And then if we go, now we go to 10. Anyate bahur vidyaya, anyata hura vidyaya, iti shushruma dhiranam, yenastat pichachakshire. And now we go to mantra 13. Anyate bahu, instead of vidyaya, sambhavat, anyatahur, asambhavat, instead of avidyaya. And the last two lines exactly the same. Iti shushruma dhiranam, yenastat pichachakshire. The great sages, Dhiras, explain it unto us. We Shushruma, we heard it, it is Shushruma. We heard this from the Dhiras, who Vichachakshire, they explain it unto us. And then if we go to mantra 11, the processes of knowledge and ignorance together. So vidyam chayas tat vedo bhayam saha avidyayam mrityum tirtva vidyayam mritamashmute. And now we go to 14. We will see the process of Sambhuti and Vinasha. Sambhuti means God and Vinasha his energy, the material manifestation. Sambhutim cha, Vinasham cha, yastat vedo bhayam saha. Vinashena mrityum tirdva, Sambhuti amritam ashnute. So both should be learned together. Any questions on these similarities and the general meaning of the verses? Now we will go into the specifics, look more closely to some sections of Srila Prabhupada's purpose and discuss the topics we introduced in the beginning. And of course, any other topics may be relevant to you in your study of this section. Okay, seems to be clear. So let's go back. Who likes to read, please?
On Sambhutanam Rataha, why are they worse than the worshippers of Asambhuti? The ignorant pseudo-religionists and the manufacturers of so-called incarnations who directly violate the Vedic injunctions are liable to enter into the darkest region of the universe because they mislead those who follow them. These impersonalists generally pose themselves as incarnations of God to foolish persons who have no knowledge of Vedic wisdom. If such foolish men have any knowledge at all, it is more dangerous in their hands than ignorance itself. Mantra 12 purport.
Thank you very much. So the question could be raised. As yesterday we were raising the question, why ignorance in the disguised as knowledge is more dangerous than gross ignorance. We were discussing that this is due to my misguiding others. Other people are cheated by following such process. And it is more difficult to recognize it because it appears very sophisticated, like we were talking about mundane science and philosophy. Appears very nice, very cultured. People may speak in learned language from the viewpoint of the use of the language. So the person may appear very educated, but then the engagement of such so-called education is to degrade the consciousness of the person who it's the person himself and those who follow that person. So similarly, the worship of so-called worship of the Supreme, and Srila Prabhupada here is giving the example of those who worship false incarnations. So such worship is worse than the worship of the demigods, for example, who are not supreme. The worship of Asambhuti refers to anyone who is not supreme. But if we worship a false supreme, or here it is specifically mentioned the worshippers of the impersonal Brahman, which will be another way of looking at it, like looking at worshipping the Supreme without realization of who the Supreme is. And especially the process of ahangropasana, the worship of oneself as the Supreme, is very much connected to monistic impersonal philosophy. You may remember from in some sections of the Bhagavad-Gita, this has been discussed. Remember ahangropasana. Do you remember this? Basically, it means to think oneself as God. Aham, I am, Angropasana. I worship Upasana. I worship myself as I am, as if I am God. Some people do that by actually they chant a mantra which is coming later here in the Ishopanishad, the Soham mantra. I am He, Soham, Soham. Like the idea is I am God, or I am like God. So it is worse, such type of worship of the false Supreme and the worship of those who are not Supreme, like for example the demigods. At least those who worship, of course it is mentioned that the worshippers of the demigods or any other form of asambhuti, let's look a little bit at the etymology of the words sambhuti and asambhuti. The term bhuta means existence, isn't it? Like for example, the term, one way of talking about living entities, when we use the Sanskrit term from Bhagavad-Gita, sarva bhutanam. Krishna says, Churidam sarva bhutanam. Krishna is the friend of all the living entities. So bhuta means existence, or we have the term Brahma-bhuta. Brahma-bhuta refers to the transcendental existence, spiritual existence. So Sambhuta refers to the existence, and Sam indicates complete. Like for example, in Sankirtan, Sam is related to the term Samyak, which means complete. So Sambhuti refers to the complete existence, referring to the personality of Godhead. He who has no one equal nor higher than him. In the Bhagavad-Gita, the term in Srila Prabhupada's commentaries, the term asama urdhva is used. I'll write it on the chat. Asama urdhva indicates that he who has nobody equal, asama, and nor higher, urdhva, higher than him. So, and therefore Srila Prabhupada defines asambhuti as those who don't have an independent existence. And this includes the demigods. But not only the demigods are asambhuti, we earthly beings are asambhuti, the demons are asambhuti, the animals, all living entities are asambhuti, are not supreme. The material nature itself is asambhuti, So these are the energies of the Lord. They are Sambhuti because they are not the supreme personality of Godhead or the complete personality of Godhead. So is it clear the meaning of Sambhuti and Asambhuti? Yes. And when we talk about Sambhuti Arataha, mentioned in verse number 12, it follows the same expression than Vidyaya Rataha. Those who are so-called situated in knowledge, like the snake with the jewel on its head, being more dangerous than the snake without the jewel. So Sambhuti Rataha refers to those who worship someone who is not supreme as supreme, or who worship the impersonal Brahman as the last expression of the Lord, of God, which, as we studied in the commentary to the invocation mantra Om Purnam, the realization of impersonal Brahman is a partial realization of the Absolute. Of course, in one sense, Brahman is non-different from Krishna. It is his energy and it is his light. So therefore, in that sense, they are one. As much as the sunlight is not separated from the sun group, still there is it should be qualified that Brahman is being, the impersonal Brahman, the Brahma Jyoti, is originating from the supreme, from the Para-Brahman, or the personality of Godhead, who manifests such wonderful potency. Any questions on this topic? Otherwise, we can continue. We have more on this topic that we read on Sambhuti and Rataha, what they are words and the worshippers of Sambhuti. If anyone likes to read.
On Sambhutayam Rata, why are they worse than the worshippers of Asambhuti? The pseudo-religionists have neither knowledge nor detachment from material affairs, for most of them want to live in golden shackles of material bondage, under the shadow of philanthropic activities disguised as religious principles. By a false display of religious sentiments, they present a show of devotional service, while indulging in all sorts of immoral activities. In this way, they pass as spiritual masters and devotees of God. Such violators of religious principles have no respect for authoritative acharyas, the holy teachers in strict disciplinic succession. They ignore the Vedic injunctions Acharyopasana. One must worship the Acharya. And Krishna's statement in Bhagavad-Gita 4.2, Evam Parampara Praptam. The supreme science of God is received through the disciplinic succession. Instead, to mislead the people in general, they themselves become so-called acharyas, but they do not even follow the principles of the acharyas. These rogues are the most dangerous elements in human society. Because there is no religious government, they escape punishment by the law of state. They cannot, however, escape the law of Supreme, who has clearly declared in Bhagavad Gita that envious demons in the garb of religious propagandists shall be thrown into the darkest regions of hell. Bhagavad Gita 16.19-20. Sri Ishopanishad confirms that these pseudo-religionists are heading towards the most obnoxious place in the universe after the completion of their spiritual master's business, which they conduct simply for sense gratification. Mantra 12, purport.
Thank you very much. So the statements are very strong, what Srila Prabhupada is saying, that he's teaching us how serious it is, the process of Guru Parampara and representing Krishna in the disciplic succession. It should not be taken lightly, and we should remain loyal to the principles of the Parampara system and also teach the same principles to other people according to our capacity. This is the instruction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and do it in a loyal way by ourselves behaving, setting a good example for others to follow, and by teaching the right messages. Like, for example, Srila Prabhupada very, very clearly, we see in many other organizations, the credit is given many times primarily to the worship goes to the Guru, but not to God. They talk about the Guru, the Guru, the Guru. But in the case of Srila Prabhupada, he didn't take the credit for himself, but he gave the credit to Krishna. And therefore he called his society the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He didn't say the International Society for Prabhupada's Consciousness. So he was giving the whole credit to Krishna, to render unto Krishna. Of course, he also taught the process of Guru Paramparan, serving the Guru as the process to serve Krishna. But he was very clear that the primary focus of the worship is the Supreme Lord. And here Srila Prabhupada is stating how even though the worship of Asambhuti keeps one in the dark regions of ignorance, that is in the material world, someone could say, but if somebody worships demigods, he goes to Svargaloka. How you can say that this is a dark region? This is what Mantra 12 is stating. What will you reply to that? Say somebody will question you in this way. That is it clear, my question?
Yes, Maharaj.
Maharaj, can you please repeat?
You can, yeah, the question is, Mantra 12 says that the worshippers of Asambhuti, and Srila Prabhupada translates Asambhuti as worship of the demigods, that they go to the dark regions of the universe. Talks about Tama, about darkness. So, but somebody could say, how you can say that if someone worships demigods, goes to Svargaloka. Svargaloka is more luminous than what we have here. What will you reply to this?
Maharaj, it doesn't break the cycle of birth and death.
Good, very good argument, yes. So
And
we
Maharaj,
we are still in jail. We may be first-class prisoners, but we are prisoners.
Once
So
the pious spirit gets over, you come back to the earthly planet again to get bound in those material activities again.
exactly. Well, then we can go down again and continue suffering, and the asuras may attack us even though we're in a Svargaloka. We have to go through the anxiety of defending ourselves from the attack of the asuras. Yes, Arti Mataji, you wanted to say something?
No, I want to, but then it just adds on to what the other Matajis have just mentioned, that, you know, it is like we read in Bhagavad-Gita that people or those who worship sun will go to sun planet, those will worship moon will go to moon planet. So I was just wondering that how we say it's darkness. The only reason we say darkness because it still has that birth and death cycle, which is not getting removed, right?
Yes, exactly. And because it is not permanent, we go to higher planet, but we cannot stay there forever. Even if we have a long life, we have to come down. So, so darkness is there also. Also, we should keep in mind that the Upanishads, as we explained last week in one of the first lessons, the Upanishads are focused very much towards moksha, towards liberation from the cycle of birth and death. So anything less than that is considered darkness. Like if we continue material life, we are still in jail. We are still, we don't know the truth. We're still dreaming. Even if we have a pleasant dream, there is a difference between a pleasant dream and a nightmare. In one way, the nightmare is very painful and disturbing, and the pleasant dream seems to be okay, but actually there is not such a big difference between one dream and the other, because the two are dreams and the two are false. So therefore, it is considered darkness, because we are forgetful of our true identities as eternal servants of Krishna, and we are forgetful of Krishna as a supreme loving master, friend, child, lover, and so on. Okay, so let's continue. Now let's look, this is a quote from Mantra 13 on the results of worshipping the Supreme and different types of worship. If anyone likes to read, please.
Different results according.
Different results.
Yeah. No, carry on, Mataji. It's fine.
Arti Mataji, you can.
Please.
You were first, so please. Arti Mataji, you.
Oh, okay. Different results according to the type of worship. Nowhere in authentic scriptures is it said that one will ultimately reach the same goal by doing anything or worshipping anyone. Such foolish theories are offered by self-made spiritual matters who have no connection with the parampara, the bona fide system of disciplic succession. The bona fide spiritual master cannot say that all paths lead to the same goal, and that anyone can attain this goal by his own mode of worship of the demigods or of the supreme of whatever. Any common man can very easily understand that a person can reach his destination only when he has purchased a ticket for that destination. A person who has purchased a ticket for Calcutta can reach Calcutta, but not Bombay. But the so-called spiritual masters say that any and all paths will take one to the supreme goal. Such mundane and compromising offers attract many foolish creatures who become puffed up with their manufactured methods of spiritual realization. The Vedic instructions, however, do not uphold them. Unless one has received knowledge from the bona fide spiritual master who is in the recognized line of disciplic succession, one cannot have the real thing as it is. Mantra 13, purport. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings, and those who worship me will live with me. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. So it is very clear. Srila Prabhupada also gives the example, like here is the example of a journey. According to the ticket we purchase, we reach a particular destination. We cannot reach a different destination with a ticket going elsewhere or a plane going elsewhere. So this is a very, very clear. And there are some in India, you may be familiar, like there is some people who claim the Yatamata Tatapat philosophy, that whatever path you follow, you attain the same destiny. Have you heard that before? Sometimes they say, whatever but that's not a very practical philosophy, and that's not accepted by Shastras. Like Sri Shopanishad is very clear about it. This is not the case. The results are different. And also the quoted verse from Bhagavad-Gita, we see next to the picture of Aditi Devi, the mother of the demigods worshipping the Lord. Yanti Deva Varata Devan Pitrin Yanti Pitri Vrataha Bhutani Yanti Bhutejya Yanti Madhyajino Pimam. So according to who we worship, we achieve such destiny, such persons. Therefore, we are advised to chant the holy names of Krishna with attention and with personal worship of Krishna, so that we can really connect to Krishna and go back to Krishna at the end of this life. If anyone likes to read, this is something more on these topics.
In this mantra of Sri Ishopanishad, the word of Sambhavat, by worship of the Supreme Cause, is very significant. Lord Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and everything that exists has emanated from him. In the Bhagavad-Gita 10.8, the Lord says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matah sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Here is a correct description of the same of the Supreme Lord given by Lord himself. The words Sarvasya Prabhavaha indicate that Krishna is the creator of everyone, including Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And because these three principal deities of the material world are created by the Lord is the creator of all that exists in the material and spiritual worlds. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. So Srila Prabhupada is connecting the word Sambhavat to the verse Aham Sarvasya Prabhava. So you see, like the Prabhavat, Sambhavat. So the connection is made, like the complete personality of Godhead, who is the origin of all the powerful personalities. And then in relation, yesterday we did discuss a little bit about the importance of attaining knowledge from Adida. And we reflected a little bit on how to understand this principle. Let's look at some more references on it. If anyone likes to read.
This mantra states
This
that
mantra states
This mantra states that the instructions of Vidya, knowledge, must be acquired from a Dhira. A Dhira is one who is not disturbed by material illusion. No one can be undisturbed unless he is perfectly spiritually realized, at which time one neither hankers nor laments for anything. A Dhira realizes that the material body and mind he has acquired by chance through material association are but foreign elements. Therefore, he simply makes the best use of a bad bargain. Maharaj, shall I continue?
Yes, please read the three.
The material body and mind are bad bargains for the spiritual living entity. The living entity has actual functions in the living spiritual world, but this material world is dead. As long as the living spiritual sparks manipulate the dead lumps of matter, the dead would appear to be a living world. Actually, it is the living souls, the parts the parts and parcels of the supreme living being who move the world. The Dhiras have come to know all these facts by hearing them from superior authorities and have realized this knowledge by following the regulative principles. To follow the regulative principles, one must take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. The transcendental message and regulative principles come down from the spiritual master to the disciple. Such knowledge does not come in the hazardous way of nascent education. One can become a Dhira only by submissively hearing from a bona fide spiritual master. Arjuna, for example, became a Dhira by submissively hearing from Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead himself. Thus, the perfect disciple must be like Arjuna, and the spiritual master must be as good as the Lord himself. This is the process of learning Vidya, knowledge from the Dhira, the undisturbed. Mantra 10 purport.
Thank you very much. So we see that in order to become a Dhira, we need to follow a Dhira, the spiritual master. This is the process of Guru Parampara. And then we can overcome the deeply rooted identification with the material mind and material body and material mind. I know this is from Mantra 13 on how to obtain knowledge from Adida. Rukmini Harisevini Mataji, you wanted to read, please?
The system of hearing from undisturbed authorities is approved in this mantra. Unless one hears from a bona fide Acharya who is never disturbed by the changes of the material world, one cannot have the real key to transcendental knowledge. The bona fide spiritual master who has also heard the Shruti mantras or Vedic knowledge from his undisturbed Acharya never presents anything that is not mentioned in the Vedic literature. It's from Purport, Mantra 13.
Thank you very much. Okay, and now, this is the last part concerned verse number 14, in which we are encouraged to know together Sambhuti, the personality of Godhead, and Vinasha, the material manifestation with all its varieties. Srila Prabhupada translates it as human beings, animals, and plants, and so on. Everything that's included in the material creation. So what does it mean to know Sambhuti and Vinasha together? And how do we apply this principle in our personal life? We can do this reflection together. Who likes to reflect, sharing with the rest of the group?
Maharaj, can you just repeat the question once again, that how can we understand Sambhuti and Vinash together? Is my understanding correct?
Yes, yes. I want to show the mantra. We will go to the translation so we can see it a bit more closely. This is the mantra 14, Sambhutim cha Vinasham cha, Yastat Vedo Bayam Saha. So Ubaya means the two both. So Veda means to know, Vedo Bayam, to know the two, Saha. Saha means together. So Vinashena Mrityum Tirdva Sambhuti Amritam Ashunte. Then we can overcome Mrityu, we can overcome death by doing so. And from the Vinasha, we will go to the Sambhutya Amritam Ashunte, and taste the nectar of Sambhuti, or the personality of Godhead. And this is the translation. One should know perfectly the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and his transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes, as well as the temporary material creation with its temporary demigods, men and animals. When one knows them, he surpasses death and the ephemeral cosmic manifestation with it. And in the eternal kingdom of God, he enjoys his eternal life of bliss and knowledge. So the question will be what it means to know together these two, the personality of Godhead with his Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila, the holy name of Krishna, his transcendental form, his qualities, his pastimes, and in the same time also to know the material manifestation. What it means practically for us. Living in modern cities, many of you are living New Delhi, or in some of you may be living whatever in Karachi in Pakistan. I know some of you are there, or living in London, wherever you may be. I spent time preaching in Madrid or Barcelona. These are big places. And how do we, what it means practically to know these two, Sambhuti and Vinasha, together?
Maharaj, what I was thinking that for definition of Bhagwan is that he's having 6 opulences. So in that renunciation is also one of them. So everything like in this all these form, gun, roop, leela are there. These are permanent. And then this material manifestation, like Lord is uh, detached from this creation of this material world and creation and destruction of this material world. It is part of Vinash. So we see that Sambhuti, like he's having all wealth, fame, beauty, strength, everything is there. So that what I think is part of Sambhuti. And Vinash or can be compared to renunciation, that he's still unaffected by all the manifestation and destruction that is happening in the material world.
Okay, good. So you connect the Vinasha to the Vairagya, the detachment of the Lord. Okay?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Any other reflections?
Maharaj.
Satyabhama Mataji?
Maharaj, I was only thinking, we can differentiate between the permanent and temporary in this manner, because Krishna and his abode is permanent, but material world is temporary. When we know what is temporary and what is permanent, we can work towards the temporary, towards the permanent, and actually get free from the cycle of birth and death.
Okay, good. Yes, that's good. So we understand the temporary nature of Pinasha, and therefore we move towards the transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord. And then we become free from the birth and death. Very good. Thank you. Any other reflections?
Maharaj, can I?
Yes.
Maharaj, I was thinking that till the time we are not aware about the opulence of Krishna, we will not get entrance into the Leela part. So we are we know that Krishna says he shows his Bhagavata, Am Savasya Prabhavo, and so many verses are there in Bhagavad-Gita. You surrender unto me, I am the worshipable, you offer me Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. Then Krishna, till the time we, and this is knowing the Bhagavata. Krishna, of course, Krishna has created the material world, and he's not he's aloof from that. Just by his glance he did it. So we know all these aspects, then only we will be able to know, we will able to know the then we can go to the Nama Rupa Guna Leela, like this. This was my understanding, Maharaj.
Okay, good. Good, thank you. Any
And
other reflections?
Maharaj, one more thing, like this material manifestation is also uh, represented by Krishna in his universal form, like demigods are part of his body, oceans are part of his body, trees, mountains, everything is part of his body. So one aspect is Gundrup Leela, that is in the spiritual world, but in material world, for our understanding, we can understand Krishna from the Virat Roop.
Good, very good. And that's described in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sri Shukadeva Goswami has described it as the first step in God realization. So we learn to see God in the Vinasha first, and then we can see him beyond the Vinasha. So and this is a process very much found in Bhagavad-Gita, like when Krishna states, I am the tasting water, I am the sunlight, I am the moonlight, I am the sound in ether, I am ability in man, and so on. I am the strength of the strong, which is devoid from passion. I am the intelligent of intelligence, and so on. And then in chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita, entitled many times with the term Vibhuti Yoga, we connect to the Lord through his Vibhuti, his energies within this material world. And we look at superlative manifestations within the Vinasha, within the material nature, and we see them that Krishna is present in those manifestations. So in this way, a link is established between the transcendental personality of Godhead and his material energies. Good, very good. Thank you. I think we cover the main points. Let me see if we have anything else. I think for these verses, okay, we will read one more. If anyone likes to read this.
In this
In
mantra,
this
Shri Ishopanishad teaches that one must perfectly know both Sambhuti, the personality of Godhead, and Vinasha, the temporary material manifestation, side by side. By knowing the material manifestation alone, one cannot be saved. For in the course of nature, there is a devastation at every moment. Ahani bhutani gachan tiha yamalyam. Nor can one be saved from these devastations by the opening of hospitals? No one can be saved only by complete knowledge of the eternal life of bliss and awareness. The whole Vedic scheme is meant to educate men in this art of attaining eternal life. People are often misguided by temporary attractive things based on sense gratification, but service rendered to the objects is both misleading and degrading. We must therefore save ourselves and our fellow men in the right way. There is no question of liking or disliking the truth. It is there. If we want to be saved from the repeated birth and death, we must take to the devotional service of the Lord. There can be no compromise, for this is a matter of necessity. Mantra 14 purport.
Thank you very much. These are concluding words of Srila Prabhupada to the commentaries to this section. Any questions on these three verses and the themes that we have discussed, or any other related themes? Okay, good. So we will take now a little break. It's 40 past in India, right? So we will come back and okay, 41. So 40, 47 pass, we come back. Okay?
Yes, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna Maharaj.
Krishna.
So now we are moving towards the last 4 verses of the Sri Ishopanishad, which change into the mood of the text. Like the previous verses were more philosophical and explanatory, we could say, giving an explanation, explaining the philosophy, the theology. And now these last verses change to a tone of prayer. We can philosophize about God and try to understand God, but then we can talk to God directly. And what happens in the last 4 verses of the Sri Ishopanishad is that the anonymous person, the name of the person who is speaking is not mentioned, but obviously it's a devotee, it's a person, and that person is speaking directly to the Lord. And there are 2 parts of what he asked the Lord for. In the first 2 verses, the devotee who prays establishes the supremacy of the personal form of God by asking the Lord to remove the covering, the brilliant, the dazzling covering from the face of the Lord, so that he can see the Lord very clearly. And this is mentioned actually in the 2 verses, in 15 and 16. So these verses can be used directly to preach Vaishnava philosophy and a personal relationship with God, with the verses from the Upanishads. Normally, people who study the Upanishads, they are attracted to the impersonal aspect of God. But here, the personal aspect is very clearly established. And these are some of the themes we find in mantras 15 and 16. So the prayer is for the darshan of the Lord. And we see in Srila Prabhupada's purpose, explaining the verses, how Bhagavan Shri Krishna is the highest realization of the absolute truth once again. And the relationship between Krishna and the Brahmajyoti, which is also known as the Iram Maya Patra, described here, it's also mentioned. Effulgent.
Maharaji, what's Hiranyamaya Patra?
It's synonymous to the Brahmajyoti, indicates like Hiran, like Hiranyakashipu. Hiranya refers to gold. So Hiran Maya, it's brilliant like gold. And Patra refers to the light. Sometimes, some translators who translate very literally the verse, they said Patra means dish, but it doesn't make sense like the dish. But okay, you could say sometimes in Shastras and in the commentaries of the Acharyas, the Brahma Jyoti has been compared to the Sudarshana Chakra. So in that sense, it's a disc of light. So Hiram Maya Patra refers to the Brahma Jyoti, to the light emanating from the face and from the transcendental body of the Lord.
Okay.
And the process And very clearly it is established how the process of bhakti yoga is superior to the processes of dhyana, because here the devotee is simply praying for help. And this is what devotees do. Devotees do not claim to be able to do everything by themselves, but very humbly they accept their limitations and pray to the Lord for help. This is more honest than the artificial exhibition of power by jnanis and yogis who claim to be very powerful in their tapasya or austerities for self-realization. And Krishna likes to reciprocate with the devotees who pray in this way. And also an important verse which appears in text 16 is the Soham part of the mantra, in which the unity of the jivas with the Lord is underlined. And of course, if we look at the verse as a whole, then we can see that there is simultaneous unity and difference. So yes, we are one with the Lord, we are from the same nature, the same quality, but yet we are subordinate to Him, and we need to pray to Him to withdraw His energy that covers our vision so that we can have His darshan. If anyone likes to read, this is from the purport to mantra 15. Okay, let's first before we go to the purpose, let's read the Sanskrit and the translation of the verses. Who likes to read, please?
हिरण्मयेन पत्रेण सत्यस्य पिहितं मुखं तत्त्वं पुषाण पर्वाणु सत्यधर्मय दृष्टये. O my Lord, the sustainer of all that lives, your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotees.
Good. So the effulgence. So here we see the word mukham. Mukham means face. Sometimes mukham is also translated as mouth, but mukham refers to the whole face. So in order to see the face of God, a Maya Patra needs to be removed. And let's read now mantra 16. Who likes to read, please?
पुष्यन्नेकर्षे यमसूर प्रजापत्य व्यूहरस्मिन् समूह तेजो यत्ते रूपं कल्याणतमं तत्ते पश्यामि योऽसौ असौ पुरुषः सोऽहम् अस्मि. Translation. O my Lord, O primeval philosopher, maintainer of the universe, O regulating principle, destination of the pure devotees, well-wisher of the progenitors of mankind, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so that I can see your form of bliss. You are the eternal supreme personality of Godhead, like unto the sun, as am I.
Thank you very much. Now in the purport to text 15, this is in the last part, Srila Prabhupada comments on the meaning of the verse. Anyone likes to read, please?
Perfect knowledge means knowing Krishna as the root of this Brahman effulgence. This knowledge can be gained from such scriptures as Srimad Bhagavatam, which perfectly elaborates the science of Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam, the author Srila Vyasadeva has established that one will describe the supreme truth as Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagwan according to one's realization to him. Srila Vyasadeva never states that the supreme truth is a jiva or an ordinary living entity. The living entity should never be considered the all-powerful supreme truth. If he were the supreme, he would not need to pray to the Lord to remove his dazzling cover so that the living entity could see his real face. The conclusion is that one who has no knowledge of the potencies of the supreme truth will realize the impersonal Brahman. Similarly, when one realizes the material potencies of the Lord but has little or no information of the spiritual potencies, he attains Paramatma realization. Thus, both Brahman and Paramatma realization of the absolute truth are partial realizations. However, when one realizes the supreme personality of Godhead Sri Krishna in full potency after the removal of the Hiranyamaya Patra, one realizes Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. Bhagavad-Gita 7.19.
Can you continue? Hare Krishna, can you continue? I'm not kidding.
Maharaj, so sorry, my network went. Hiranya Patra, one realizes Vasudev Sarvamiti, Bhagavad Gita 7.19. Lord Shri Krishna, who is known as Vasudeva, is everything. Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagwan. He is Bhagwan, the root, and the Brahman and the Paramatma are his branches. In the Bhagavad Gita 6.46 and 47, there is a comparatively analysis of the three types of transcendentalists: the worshippers of the impersonal Brahman, Gyanis; the worshippers of the Paramatma feature, yogis; and the devotees of Lord Krishna, bhaktas. It is stated there that the Gyanis, those who have cultivated Vedic knowledge, are better than ordinary fruitive workers, that the yogis are still greater than the Gyanis, and that among all yogis, those who constantly serve the Lord with all their energies are the topmost. In summary, a philosopher is better than a laboring man. A mystic is superior to the philosopher, and of all the mystic yogis, he who follows bhakti yoga, constantly engaging in the service of the Lord, is the highest. Sri Ishopanishad directs us towards this perfection. Isho Mantra 50, conclusion of the purport.
Thank you very much. So this is an important, very strong statement of Srila Prabhupada, in which he puts into perspective the teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam in regards to the absolute truth. Srila Prabhupada is paraphrasing the verse, Vadanti tat tat va vidas, tat vanjakyanamatvayam, brahmeti paramatmeti, bhagavaniti shaptiyate. That learned transcendentalists are able to realize the absolute truth as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And then Srila Prabhupada is qualifying it in terms of the Gyanis who are self-realized, they reach the realization of Brahman. The yogis attain the realization of Paramatma. The bhaktas attain the realization of Bhagavan. And the Srimad Bhagavatam establishes very clearly how Bhagavan is a higher realization than Brahman and Paramatma, in that it is a very intimate personal realization of love between the Lord and his pure devotees. And the clear examples given in the Srimad Bhagavatam are Shukadeva Goswami and the four Kumaras, who, despite the fact they were completely satisfied in their own realization, Brahman realization, it is mentioned in the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that in a verse starting with the line Svasukha Nibritta Chetas Tadvyudastanya Bhavo and so on, that although Sri Shukadeva Goswami was completely absorbed in his own happiness, he was Atmarama, he was self-satisfied. So even though he was so happy within himself, he became attracted to the pleasing, melodious pastimes of the personality of Godhead, Adida, who is unconquerable. He is actually only conquered by the pure devotees who follow the process of surrender, taught also in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Shukadeva Goswami became attracted to the transcendental qualities of the Lord, and his realization of Brahman, of course, it still continued, was there, but was superseded by his realization of Bhagavan. And therefore, the verse, Sutta Goswami quotes the verse, the Atmarama verse, in relation to Sri Shukadeva Goswami. Atmaramas chamunayo nirgrantapi urukrame kurvanti haitukim bhaktim itam buddha uno harihi. The different types of Atmaramas or personalities who are self-satisfied become captivated by the transcendental qualities of Hari, which prove that his qualities are not material, are actually beyond the three gunas, the three qualities of material nature. If anyone would like to read this and the next slide, they go together. So whoever likes to read. This is from purport to text 16.
In his Bhagavad Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami states the complete conception of absolute truth is realized in the personality of Godhead because he is almighty and possesses full transcendental potencies. The full potency of absolute truth is not realized in the Brahma Jyoti. Therefore, Brahman realization is only partial realization of personality of Godhead. O learned sages, the first syllable of word Bhagwan, Bha, has two meanings. The first is one who fully maintains, and the second is guardian. The second syllable ga means guide, leader, or creator. The syllable van indicates that every being lives in him and that he also lives in every being. In the other words, the transcendental sound Bhagwan represents infinite knowledge, potency, energy, opulence, strength, and influence, all without a tinge of material inebriety. The Lord fully maintains his unalloyed devotees and he guides them progressively on the path towards devotional perfection. As leader of his devotees, he ultimately awards the desired result of devotional service by giving himself to them. The devotees of Lord see the Lord eye to eye by his causeless mercy. Thus, the Lord helps his devotees reach the supermost spiritual planet, Golok Vrindavan. Being the creator, he bestows all necessary qualifications upon his devotee so that they can ultimately reach him. Mantra 16 purport.
Thank you very much. So that's a very important difference of the process of bhakti in comparison to other transcendental processes such as jnana or yoga. In the process of bhakti, the personal help of the Lord is prevalent, whereas in other processes, it is not so directly seen. Of course, the Lord is helping everybody. Jaya tamam prapadyante tam stathaiva bhajami aham mama varmanu vartante manusya partha sarvasaha. The Lord states in Bhagavad-Gita that as they surrender unto me, I help them, I reciprocate with them. So the Lord is helping everybody, but with his pure devotees, the intimacy of the help, the personal help of the Lord is very much present. And therefore the process of bhakti is much faster, much effective, and hence supreme in comparison to other processes of spirituality. Anyone likes to read this quote?
Since the Lord is the origin of both Paramatma and Brahman, he is the origin of all living entities and all else that exists. Those who know this engage at once in the devotional service of the Lord. Such pure and fully cognizant devotees of the Lord are fully attached to him in heart and soul, and whenever such devotees assemble with similar devotees, they have no engagement but the glorification of the Lord's transcendental activities. Those who are not as perfect as the pure devotees, namely those who have realized only the Brahman or Paramatma features of the Lord, cannot appreciate the activities of the perfect devotees. The Lord always helps the pure devotees by imparting necessary knowledge within their hearts, and thus out of his special favor he dissipates all the darkness of ignorance. The speculative philosophers and yogis cannot imagine this because they more or less depend on their own strength. As stated in the Katha Upanishad 1.2.23, the Lord can be known only by those whom he favors and not by anyone else. Such special favors are bestowed upon his pure devotees only. Upanishad thus points to the favor of the Lord, which is beyond the purview of the Brahmajyoti. Mantra 16 purport.
Thank you very much. So this confirms what we just stated, how the Lord is favoring his devotees. Of course, he can choose to favor anyone, but he particularly favors his devotees in reciprocation for their surrender, their love, and their personal service unto him. Whereas others may be proud of their whatever spiritual achievements they got, and they feel kind of proud. I remember one time in 2009, I attended the Parliament of World Religions in Melbourne, Australia, and there were many different activities. And in one of the activities organized, all the representatives from traditions connected to the Vedas, it was called like Hindu traditions, were called together for a visit to a temple that in outside, like 1 hour drive from Melbourne or so. There is a very big temple, which is like a replica of temples in South India. And the temple has two parts. One part are this type of South Indian towers, like this, like kind of not triangle, but this Gopuram, but special types of temples found in South India. So we went to visit it. We were taken to visit the temple. We were welcome. There was a group of musicians playing drums and blowing trumpets and so on. And all the leaders from the different organizations were welcoming to the temple. And among the leaders, there were many providing from Mayavadi groups. So when we entered the temple, there were different altars and personalities in the temple. So I was paying obeisances to the different forms of the Lord, or also forms of key devotees who are present in the temple. But all these other representatives, they were not paying obeisances to anyone. They were just walking around. So I was reflecting that, yeah, they think they are God. They don't have to pay obeisances to anyone. But we think we are servants of God, so we do pay obeisances, and we are happy to do it. So this, anyway, this is kind of the difference between the Vaishnava behavior and the behavior of the non-Vaishnavas, even though if they are practicing some transcendental process, there is some sense of pride or for achievement in self-realization, and this actually is detrimental for attaining the ultimate goal. Only when somebody acknowledges that I myself I cannot reach God, then we'll be able to get the favor of the Lord. And therefore we are taught humility. We are taught, for instance, the third verse of Shikshastakam as a prayer we should carry around as we carry Kanti Mala, considering ourselves servants of Krishna. So carry around our necks this mantra, Trimnat Vishmichena, Karori Vasa Kishnuna, Amani Namanadena, Kirtanija Sadahari. We are meant to cultivate humbleness as a blade of grass, tolerance like that of a tree, being ready to offer full respect to others and do not expect any respect for ourselves. Only then we will be able to constantly chant the holy name, which ultimately implies to get the personal darshan of the Lord. Any questions or comments on these points mentioned in these verses in relation to personal realization of God versus impersonal or partial realization of God in Brahman or Paramatma? Yes, Rukmini Harisevini Mataji.
Maharaj, one point was coming in my mind, like there are two types of there some are sadhana siddh and some are kripa siddh. So sadhana siddh devotees are like they are more, they put so much effort and they get the siddhi, the perfection through their sadhana. So, and here we are reading that a devotee is very much humble. So it was coming in my mind that in sadhana siddh devotees, of course, they are also depend on Krishna, but somehow, can you please help Maharaj?
Yes, but even if you argue, like, say, the sadhana siddha devotees attains perfection through sadhana, and therefore you could say through personal endeavor in devotional service, whereas the kripa siddha is getting the perfection without such a perfect sadhana, and still by the mercy of Guru and Krishna may get perfection. But still, even the sadhana siddha is, the sadhana is also related to the kripa. Like it is like sadhana bhakti depends on the mercy of the Lord for performing proper practice. Also, the sadhana is taught by the mercy of the spiritual master. The instructions of the spiritual master are actually his kripa. And then, of course, the disciple may take to heart those instructions and then put them into practice. And this will greatly benefit him or her. But still, the sadhana is related to the kripa as well. And the sadhana bhakta will not think that, oh, I'm attaining advancement in bhakti due to my strict sadhana. I'm conquering Krishna. This will be an improper mentality, improper attitude, and will not do. So it is necessary that the sadhana is performed with utter humility and recognizing that, my Lord, if you don't intervene, like this devotee is praying, please withdraw the Iramaya Patra because otherwise I cannot see you. So similarly, the devotee may pray to the Lord, Lord, please withdraw your Maya, otherwise I cannot become detached from the material world and I cannot see you. So in this way, also in the sadhana, humility is required, and ultimately the sadhana will be fruitful only when the Lord bestows his mercy. Like for example, Dhruva Maharaj performed a very powerful sadhana, but the Lord had to bestow his mercy. He didn't force the Lord, but the Lord reciprocated with his extraordinary sadhana, extraordinary practice of surrender and full dedication. Is that okay?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Tarun Prabhu?
Maharaj, I wanted to understand what is the difference between impersonalist and Mayavadis, because a goal of both of them is to merge into the Supreme Lord. Like what my understanding is that impersonalist wants to merge into Brahmajyoti, and Mayavadis consider themselves as Narayan, as in like Namo Narayan. So they consider themselves as Narayan, but in the end they also want to merge within the Supreme Lord only. So what is the difference between both of these categories?
Yes, like we can explain it like that. All Mayavadis are impersonalists, but not all impersonalists are Mayavadis. So impersonalist is a greater category. There are different types of impersonalists. Sometimes they are divided as Mayavadis and Brahmavadis. So Mayavadis are those who follow the philosophy of illusion. It's called also sometimes in Vedantic terms Vivartavada. I will write in the chat some of these terms. Vivartavada is the doctrine or the theory, the philosophy, Vada, of Vivarta. Vivarta means illusion. So the idea of Mayavada comes from those who follow the doctrine of Maya, the doctrine of illusion. And basically this is coming, there is a slogan, many of you may have heard, or some of you, it's a popular slogan among the followers of Shankaracharya, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Have you heard this before?
Yes.
Yes, Maharaj, yes.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes, Maharaj.
They say the Brahman is the truth, and Jagat, the universe, is mithya, is false.
Yeah.
So the term Mayavada comes from the second part of the statement, Jagat mithya. And they say that the universe is false. But actually, this philosophy contradicts the philosophy of Bhagavad-Gita, because Krishna in Bhagavad-Gita doesn't say that the material world is useless or false. He says, I am the tasting water, I am the sunlight, I am the moonlight, as we were describing before. So he is present in material creation. And he says, these are my energies. These are my this is my prakriti. Mayadi akshena prakriti suyate satcharacharam. The prakriti is acting under my direction. And the prakriti is the mother. And actually, the prakriti is described in chapter 14. You will study that when you come to these chapters. In the beginning of chapter 14, Sarva yonishu kaunteya murtayak sambhavanteyaha tasam brahma mahatyonir aham bija pradapita. That all living entities are born from the womb of material nature, and this material nature in this verse is described as the Sam Brahma, the Mahat Brahma, the great Brahman. So the total material energy is described in the Gita as the great Brahman, which is consistent with the verse in the Upanishads stating Sarvam Kalu Idam Brahma. That's another quote, it's quoted by Srila Prabhupada frequently. Sarvam, it's Sarvam, not Sarva. Sarvam Kalu Idam Brahma, which means everything that exists is Brahman. So everything that exists is a manifestation of God. So to say that the Jagat is false is contradicting such statements from Shastra. So therefore, the term Mayavadi is used, the followers of the doctrine of illusion. But there are other types of impersonalists who are not Mayavadis. They do not necessarily say that the material world is false, but they feel particularly attracted by the Brahman effulgence. So they're called Brahmavadis. And usually, impersonalists who are Mayavadis, they do not like to be called Mayavadis. So you should be aware of that. If you are preaching, they may feel insulted. Why you're calling me Mayavadi? And so they like to be called Brahmavadi because it means I am realizing Brahman. Brahman is the truth. So I hope I have answered the question. Like, for example, Shukadeva Goswami and the four Kumaras, they were Brahmavadis, they were impersonalists or monists. They were seeing the unity in everything creation, but they were not Mayavadis.
Okay, so Maharaj, like I'll just reiterate. So all Mayavadis are impersonalist, but all impersonalists are not Mayavadis. Means impersonalism is a broader category, and Mayavadi is a subset of that.
Yes.
So, like what we hear that Mayavadi Krishna Aparadi, this means that only the Vivartavadis or the Mayavadis, which is a subset, those are actually the offenders to Krishna because they consider like everything as mithya, like creation as like illusion, basically.
Yes, and they deny the personal form of Krishna to the point that they say that the personal form of Krishna is like the form of a demigod, which is actually a representation of Brahman in the material mode of goodness, but actually it is material and ultimately needs to be rejected. So Mayavadis even worship deities, but they worship deities with the idea of giving it up. So they worship deities, and at some point they say, I realize I am God, I am the one, there is only one soul, all the differentiation among different souls is a product of Maya, and I am the soul, I am the one. This is their philosophy. There is only one soul, and we are that soul.
And Maharaj, like this is the take of Mayavadis towards Krishna, that they consider him as like other demigods. So what is the understanding of Brahmavadis towards Krishna? Like, do they also have similar understanding, or
Not necessarily, actually. Generally, many Brahmavadis, when they come to meet Krishna, they come closer to the personal form of Krishna, they become attracted. Like Shukadeva Goswami and the four Kumaras are like the examples of Brahmavadis who were very advanced, and they became attracted by Krishna. Like the Kumaras were transformed when they, just by smelling the scent of the tulasi leaves and the incense flowers offered to the lotus feet of Lord Narayana, they became transformed in body and mind, the Bhagavatam states. And they couldn't help it. They were elated, blissful, became very, very attracted. And they wanted to touch the Lord, they wanted to see him. So they become attracted. But some of them are still Brahmavadis because they came to that level of realization, Shanta Ras, and they were in the mood of contemplation and experiencing the bliss of Brahman, the bliss of transcendence. So they couldn't see another thing than this experience of the Brahmananda. They're very happy there. But then when they meet personally Krishna, they realize that Krishna is not material. Krishna is non-different from Brahman, and even more beautiful than Brahman, because they can see the unique qualities of and beauty of Krishna. So they become attracted.
Maharaj, if I can just ask one more thing in this impersonalism, is it fine, or if it takes more time, then in the end I can ask?
No, it's okay. You can ask.
We see that the Brahmavadis, they worship Shankar, like Adi Shankar they worship. So what is the reason that they are worshipping Lord Shiva in the form of Adi Shankar?
Well, I mean, yes, Adi Shankar, they worship Lord Shiva. It depends. Not every, some do worship Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is known as Yogeshvara. Of course, Krishna is also known as Yogeshvara, but Lord Shiva is a very powerful yogi and ascetic, and many times they feel attracted to the practice of cultivation of knowledge and severe penance, because Lord Shiva is such a powerful example of this. They become attracted to him and they worship him in order to get inspiration and strength from Lord Shiva. But then many of them again think that ultimately they are Shiva, Shivoham. They sometimes chant that mantra. They think that they are God. And this is connected to the expression in Mantra 16, Soham Asmi. You see in
Yes, Maharaj, yes.
You can go back. So, and even in the translation, can be a little puzzling, like how it is stated You are the eternal supreme personality of Godhead likened to the sun, as I am, or as am I. Of course, doesn't mean that I am God, but I am also like the energy of the sun. I'm also the light of God. But in the same mantra, it is mentioned, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so that I can see your form of bliss. And this is mentioned. Yatte rupam kaljanatamam tate pashyami. So vyuha rashmin samuha tejo. Remove the tejo, this powerful energy, so I can see yatte rupam, your form. Te rupam, your form. Te pashyami. I can see you. Tate pashyami. But sometimes impersonalists, and especially Mayavadis, they take out of context and they chant only this line, Soham, Soham, Soham. I am he, Soham, Soham. I am God.
Thank you, Maharaj. Like I was having this doubt like since long. What is the difference between both these categories and so on? So thank you for clarifying this.
And now maybe before we move to the last two verses, we may reflect on arguments on the basis of Sri Upanishad. Identify as many arguments as possible that establish that the absolute truth is the supreme person. So if you look at the text of the Sri Upanishad, what verses will you quote? We have seen, of course, we're coming to the end of this concise but very powerful Upanishad. And we have seen different sections in which the personal position of God is underlined.
Francisco.
So what arguments will you
Francisco,
quote?
just a quick question.
Yeah,
This
Maharaj, like
50 million that we added, later in the books, in the PMAs, I think it was 50 or 35 plus 15 is the other adjustment. This 35, what should I say? 35 is Russia PMA.
I couldn't understand. Can you please repeat?
So how we increased it? What should I say there?
Aarti
Because she's
Mataji,
asking me
are
now.
you mentioning something?
Yeah, she was mentioning that. Can you repeat, please, Aarti Mataji, your question? Aarti Mataji, can you repeat, please? You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, let me speak to him. Yeah.
No, I think she's
So
speaking
Francisco,
to
what she's saying now that you have to
I think
prepare
she's
the paper,
yeah,
the paper that we discussed
speaking to
earlier
someone
about the
else, I
change.
think.
That what are the IFRS 9 various outcomes? So ECL, how much is the ECL? How much are the PMAs? And a write up on them, some small write up. Maybe we can put in the comments and how total. Yes, final numbers. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, I think
Yeah,
the host
that,
can mute,
and then
mute
she's
Mataji.
saying, I'll forward it to you. Then some
Radhika Prabhu,
like
can you Radhika
Russia,
Prabhu, can you
is there
just
any
mute
change after April
Mataji?
in Russia events or something? I don't think things have changed.
No,
We can look at.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes, okay. I thought she was asking a question. I couldn't understand. So yes, Tarun Prabhu, you were going to say something.
Yeah, Maharaj, like you were asking about the evidences that I think the invocation prayer itself shows that like Supreme Lord is Purna, like Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate, that Supreme Lord is complete and everything, whatever is emanating from him is also complete. And even though things are emanating from him, still he is complete. So this shows the completeness of Lord and the supremacy of Lord.
Very good, very good. Then what other arguments would you quote from the Sri Upanishad to prove the personality of Godhead?
That first verse also shows that he's the controller and he's the owner of everything. That Isha Vasyamidam Sarvam. That everything is controlled and owned by him.
But yes, very important. Like even the invocation mantra, sometimes Mayavadis, because it's more abstract, Om Purnam, they may tend to try to get away with an impersonal interpretation. But the Ishavasya mantra, it's pretty straightforward, very, very direct. Then there are other mantras as well, like for example, in mantra 4, in which he is described as surpassing all the demigods. So very clearly a difference is established between God and the demigods, which many times Mayavadis tend to say that you can worship any form of any demigod, and it's the same. Like they practice the Panchopasana method, the worship of the 5 types of functional deities as representations of Brahman, but they think that these deities ultimately, they go beyond them. This is their attitude or their hidden consciousness. And then, of course, these 2 verses, Iram Mayena Patrena and the next one, so are also very important verses in which the devotee prays for withdrawal from this, withdrawal from the influence of the light, the dazzling effulgence coming from the Lord. Okay, good. So let's now move to the last 2 verses. These are very important verses. And we could say these are mantras 17 and 18 in preparation for death. So the eternal nature of the soul and the temporary nature of the body is underlined in these 2 mantras, especially in number 17. And the point is stated that even if at the time of death a devotee does not remember the Lord, the merciful Lord will not forget the service of the devotee and will help him. Still, we should learn the art of serving and remembering the Lord in this life, so that when it comes the time of death, we are able to remember him very naturally. And then in this way, through the powerful process of Bhakti Yoga, we can go back to Godhead at the end of this lifetime. And if there are any deficiencies, the Lord is ready to purify us, purify our souls, so that we can come close to him, and he is willing to guide us if we want to attain him. So let's read the verses. Who likes to read? Some of you will be familiar with this mantra. This is chanted in the funerals before the cremation. It's
Vayuranilam amritam athedham bhashmantam shariram om krito smara kritam smara krito smara kritam smara. Let this temporary body be burned to ashes, and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, O my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices And because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I have done for you.
Thank you very much. So it is mentioned 3 times, please remember. Om Kratos Smara Kritam Smara, Kratos Smara Kritam Smara. So Smara, please remember 3 times, which is very important. But actually, we are the ones who need to remember, because the Lord, He doesn't forget the service of His devotees. Still in the prayer, in the funerals, the priest is praying for the departed soul, and all the devotees present are praying for the departed soul, so that the Lord will have mercy on that soul. But we are the ones who need to remember, because we tend to forget. Sometimes Prabhupada will speak about the renunciation of the crematorium. Have you heard about that? Somebody becomes very detached when there is a funeral. In the funeral, everybody becomes very spiritual, like starts reflecting philosophically. But then after they go out of the funeral, they forget. They start again drinking and eating and trying to enjoy the senses and so on. So this is the nature of the material world. So we need to be reminded of the Lord. There is a lila of Ramanujacharya, the powerful Acharya of the Sri Sampradaya. When he was a young man, he was a disciple of one. He in his biography, we have read that he had 6 gurus. One was the great Acharya of the Sri Sampradaya at the time, Sri Yadunanadan, and then there were 5 disciples of Yadunanadan who became gurus to Ramanujacharya. One of them was named Kanchipurna. He was living in the holy city of Kanchi in South India. He was worshipping the Varadaraj deity of the Lord. And he had such an intimate relationship with the Lord in this beautiful form that he will be able to talk to him, and the Lord will speak back to him. They will talk. He will be able to listen the messages of the deity in a very personal way. So if he had sometimes disciples or people, devotees, will come to him and ask questions. And if he didn't have an answer, or if he deemed the question worthy, he would say, let me ask Varadaraj. I'll ask the Lord and I'll get back to you. So one time Ramanujacharya, when he was a young man, asked his guru Kanchipurna, Guru Maharaj, please can you tell me what happens if a devotee at the time of death forgets Krishna, forgets the Lord? Like we are taught that we should remember Krishna at the time of death. But the time of death is very difficult. Just remember the prayer of Kulashekara, who was praying to die now, because otherwise, when the throat is afflicted by mucus and you cannot breathe properly, you are suffocated with, or whatever, COVID, dying, then how you will be able to remember Krishna? So he had this concern and he asked the question. So Kanchipurna told him, let me ask Varadaraj and get back to you. And Lord Varadaraj told Kanchipurna, tell my devotee Ramanuja that if my devotee forgets me at the time of death, tell him that I will remember my devotee. I will remember the service my devotee has offered for me. So he may forget, but I won't forget. Krishna is actually the origin of remembrance and forgetfulness. Mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha, Krishna states in chapter 15, verse 15 of Bhagavad-Gita. So Krishna is giving remembrance. He won't forget if he's making everybody to remember. So Krishna never forgets his devotees. Let's read also the translation for text 18, the Sanskrit. Who likes to read, please?
Agnenaya supataraya asman vishvani deva vayunani vidvan yodhyasman juhurana meno bhuishthamitetnam uktim videma. O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances falling on the ground at your feet. O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you. And since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from the reactions to my past sins so that there will be no hindrance to my progress.
Thank you very much. And now let's look a little bit at some parts of Srila Prabhupada's purpose that may be good to reflect on. If anyone likes to read.
Even if at the time of death a devotee does not remember his service to the Lord does not forget him. This prayer is given to remind the Lord the devotee's sacrifice. But even if there is no such reminder, the Lord does not forget the service rendered by his pure devotee. The Lord clearly describes his intimate relationship with his devotees in the Bhagavad-Gita 9:30 to 34. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they may be of lower birth, women, Vaishya, as well as Shudra, that's merchants and workers respectively, can attain the supreme destination. How much more this is so of the righteous Brahmanas, the devotees and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engaged in loving service unto me. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances to me and worship me, being completely absorbed in me. Surely you will come to me. Isho Mantra 17 purport.
Thank you very much. So it's very clear the topic, how the Lord is always merciful and he always remembers the devotees. He always helps. Even those who made mistakes, he's ready to help them rectify. Of course, this should not be misused to consciously make mistakes and then say, okay, yes, the Lord will pardon me and I'm fine. Shouldn't be misused in this way, but we should remember the merciful nature of Krishna, and that even if we make unwillingly some mistakes or due to our immaturity, Krishna will give us another chance and we can rectify ourselves and improve our devotional service. If anyone likes to read this is another point which we mentioned before in the beginning of this section.
Unless one is accustomed to devotional practice, what will he remember at the time of death when the body is dislocated, and how can he pray to the Almighty Lord to remember his sacrifices? Sacrifice means denying the interest of the senses. One has to learn this art by employing the senses in the service of the Lord during one's lifetime. One can utilize the results of such practice at the time of death. It's Mantra 17 purport.
Thank you very much. So, so it is clear the point here that in order for us to be ready to remember Krishna, we need to be engaged in Krishna during our daily life. So therefore sadhana is very much required. Sadhana, sadhu sangha, proper engagement of the senses in devotional service, practical service, karma yoga, and of course with bhakti. So in this way it becomes part of the bhakti yoga process, like that. Any questions or comments on this point, on the time of death? Okay, that's
Maharaj, I had one doubt. I heard somewhere, I'm not sure, I don't have any reference, but I heard somewhere that uh, like whenever we die, so soul doesn't immediately get a body, but like it takes some time for the soul to get a new body. And that is why the Shraddh ceremony is there, that if the Shraddh is not performed, then he may get a ghostly body. So like it takes around 12 to 13 days for a soul to get a new body. Is that like correct or?
yeah. I mean, this is according to the karma sections of the Vedas, and of course the rituals are follow consider all these things. That there are some timing, universal timings which are there, but also the timings may vary according to the level of consciousness of the person. Remember that the time is different in the hellish planets or the earthly planets or the heavenly planets or Brahmaloka. So the time is relative actually. So yes, there is some timing, we could say transitional timings, but we shouldn't worry too much about it, as mentioned at the end of chapter 8 of the Gita, that the devotees do not need to worry about auspicious time, in auspicious time to leave the body, and is the right timing or not. A devotee should just remember Krishna, take shelter of Krishna, and Krishna takes care of his journey back to Godhead. And this may be okay, maybe direct if the devotee is ready, and if the devotee is not ready yet, maybe indirect by stopping somewhere and continuing devotional service wherever the devotee left it in the lifetime he just finished.
So Maharaj, like as we hear in Bhagavad Gita that the fate of an unsuccessful yogi is that either he gets a birth in a family of Brahmana or in a aristocratic family. So is that helpful in devotional service, or it can become a hindrance in devotional service? Because if we get birth in a very aristocratic wealthy family, then we might not take to spiritual practices, or if we are in a Brahmana family, then we might get attached to knowledge more than Krishna. So is that a benefit or?
Therefore, two levels are mentioned. A less advanced level in which the heavenly planets and the family of an aristocratic person or a brahmana is mentioned, and then a more advanced level is mentioned, yoga brashta or yogi who didn't complete the process, but who is very advanced, may take birth in a family of transcendentalists. So in this case, that's more desirable, because that family of advanced devotees, advanced transcendentalists, will make it very easy for one to grow. The other family is okay, he may be able to continue wherever he left it, but it's better to advance more and to take birth in a family of transcendentalists. If one have to come back, of course, we're encouraged to practice sadhana bhakti so well in this lifetime that we will be able to remember Krishna at the time of death. So when death comes, we will be ready for it. Not long ago, a devotee passed away, Rasasundari Mataji. She was German, living in Spain for many years, disciple of His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj. And she passed away in a very wonderful manner. She was in her place, in her home, surrounded by very few devotees. But when the time for passing away was coming close, the last 2-3 hours, Krishna arranged everything in such a way that the temple devotees came and were performing a beautiful kirtan, and she left her body in this way. All the symptoms were highly auspicious. My analysis was that her service was to push Harinam in Malaga temple in South Spain. So because she was a servant of the holy name, so loyal, and she was giving the holy name to other people by pushing the Nagar Sankirtan, the public Harinam Sankirtan in the streets. Every time, every week, she will encourage the devotees, please come on Harinam, let's go on Harinam. And she will go out. So later on, when she contracted cancer, she couldn't go anymore. But then the holy name came to her at the time of death, and she passed away during a kirtan. And her husband took a picture of her Guru Maharaj and put the picture in front of her. And at that time, she shed 2 tears, and she left her body. She passed away. So it was very, very, very wonderful. Devotees were singing very strongly, and so Krishna is merciful to the devotees, and especially if he's pleased by the preaching service, then Krishna very kindly reciprocates to the service offered by his pure devotees.
Thank you.
Let's look one more quote. I wanted to explore, that's important. We want to look now, this in relation to mantra 18, how the Lord helps the devotees, in what ways the Lord helps the devotees. If anyone likes to read.
The Lord is so kind to the devotee who is fully surrendered to his lotus feet that even though the devotee sometimes fall into the intent of vikarma acts against the Vedic directions, the Lord at once rectifies such mistakes from within his heart. This is because the devotees are very dear to the Lord. In this month of Shri Shopanishad, devotee prays to the Lord to rectify him from within his heart. To err is human. Conditioned soul is very soft, apt to commit mistakes, and only remedial measure to take against such unintentional sins is to give oneself up to the lotus feet of the Lord so that he may guide one to avoid such pitfalls. The Lord takes charge of fully surrendered souls. Thus, all problems are solved simply by surrendering oneself unto the Lord and acting in terms of his directions. Such directions are given to the sincere devotee in 2 ways. One is by way of the saints, scriptures, and spiritual master, and the other is by the way of Lord himself, who resides within the heart of everyone. Thus, the devotee fully enlightened with Vedic knowledge is protected in all respects. It's from Mantra 18 purport.
Thank you very much. So this is very important. Two ways of guiding the devotees are mentioned here by Srila Prabhupada. So one is from within, as the Chaitya Guru, the Paramatma, the Lord within the heart is giving guidance. And the other one is from outside through the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas. So this is the way of guiding the devotee. From within, the Lord is giving guidance, and from outside as well. This is a very important teaching that we need to remember. And one more quote. Who likes to read?
I'll read Maharajji. Oh, okay.
Yes, Arti Mataji, you can read.
The Lord helps the devotee by the process of hearing and chanting. Hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord is itself an act of piety. The Lord wants everyone to hear and chant his glories because he is the well-wisher of all living entities. By hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, one becomes cleansed of all undesirable things, and then one's devotion becomes fixed upon the Lord. At this stage, the devotee acquires the Brahminical qualifications and the effects of the lower modes of nature, passion and ignorance, completely vanish. The devotee becomes fully enlightened by virtue of his devotional service, and thus he comes to know the path of the Lord and the way to attain him. As all doubts diminish, he becomes a pure devotee. Mantra 18, end of purport.
Thank you very much. So we see here how Srila Prabhupada is explaining how important it is to approach the Lord by hearing and chanting his glories, his name and his about his form, his transcendental qualities, his leelas. And in this way we can remember him and become very, very inspired and enlightened by such hearing and chanting, and then gradually we become pure devotees. Okay, so I have, for ending this section, and I think it's appropriate for ending the study of Upanishad, I have two exercises. Maybe you need to copy the first one. Let me see, because I want to put some music for you. Although maybe I can project and put the music. Let us see how it sounds. You can tell me. But I'll show you what. You will have like 10, 12 minutes because we will go half an hour extra, we were told, because it's the last class of this section, is Upanishad. So we have still 24 minutes. So you will have about 10, 12 minutes to reflect on two things. This will be individual reflection, and you can take notes in your notebooks. So, meaning in your handbooks or whatever you have for writing. This is for you to do, even though it's written group work, but it's for individual reflection. So one is about the purpose of prayer. And maybe you want to copy this question. What role prayer plays in your life? What type of prayers do you offer? Can negative emotions be expressed in prayer? What principles do you apply in prayer? So this is reflecting on your own experience. As the devotee here is praying for seeing the form of the Lord, and for remembering, for overcoming obstacles at the time of death to come closer to the Lord. So this is one question. And then another question, so it has two parts. It's a lot, but you can do you can take 5 minutes for this, and then 5 minutes for the next questions, which I show here. So did you copy the first before we move into the second? Copy or take a picture of it or whatever. You have it?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. And then this is a self-evaluation for the final test. So now you're doing it's an estimation. Of course, it's just an exercise. And we know that everything depends on the mercy of the Lord. But let's reflect on our own condition. So you are meant to write 2 lists, including the following elements. One is what the spiritual services and practices you have offered God during your life. Like now you imagine that the end of life is coming to you, and think of where you are now. Long life to all of you, but we don't know when we will die. So imagine you are going to die now. So then reflect on, make a list of what services I have done for Krishna, what sadhana, what I have done this lifetime. And because he is all merciful, he won't forget that I have done all these things. But then you have also a second list, all whatever defects, attitudes, whatever pride, envy, lust, whatever it is there, and obstacles you see in yourself that may impede you returning back to Godhead at the time of death. And then you can write in your reflection, considering both lists, what do you think will happen at the time of death? Will Krishna take back to Goloka Vrindavan or to whatever transcendental planet is you prefer? Or will he make you come back? What will be the outcome? Is it clear, the exercise?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah.
So you have like 10 minutes for that. I'll play a little music. I can leave the screen. Let me see if the music combines well with the screen. Just 1 second, I'll go there. Can you hear the music?
Yes.
Can you hear the music?
Yes.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes, okay. I'll leave it like that. And then in 10 minutes, I'll come back to you.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hare Krishna. Okay, hope the exercise went well. So let's do one thing. We can now and take a few minutes, like the last 10 minutes, to share among yourselves. We can make 3 groups. Let us see. Let me see here. I don't have the power to create the groups. I think, Tarun, probably you have the power to do it.
Yes,
So
Maharaj,
I will create, should be a small group. So should be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, groups of 3. So, okay, I mean, what will be one extra, or groups of, you could put 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 2 twos, maybe, could be. So will be for 2 pairs and 3 triads. So you have time to share. If you make it too big, not everybody will have time to share. If we make it short, you can share what you like to share from this exercise, like about the prayer, or about what do you think the outcome will be at the time of death, if death will come now, and so on.
So Maharaj, shall I make the groups?
Do you know how to make the groups?
Yes,
Yeah.
Maharaj, yes, yes.
Yeah, I suggest you make 2 pairs, 2, 2, and 3, 3.
Okay. Maharaj, like these will be made automatically. So what I'll do, I'll create 4 rooms. So automatically the Zoom meeting will assign devotees in those groups.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Good,
so,
that's good.
yeah, so I'll create them. Yes. So
Okay, good.
yeah, and
And
like what should be the duration of that groups? Like how
I
long?
think 8 minutes should be.
Okay.
8 minutes. Okay, 10 minutes. Let's
Okay.
say 10 minutes, and so we don't make it too short.
Okay, okay, Maharaj, I'll create them. So devotees would have got the invite to join those groups. Kindly join them. Hare Krishna Maharaj, devotees are back from the rooms.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. How did it go in your groups? Was it useful, the exercise? How good it was?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, yes Maharaj, activity was very helpful and I was in group number 1. Hare Grace Priya Satyabhama Mataji will speak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So Maharaj, we were discussing about prayers, and all of us, unanimously agree that prayers are like having a conversation with Krishna. And through the medium of prayers, we can try and develop a connection, a bond, a relationship with the Lord. And no negative emotions, can be expressed in prayers. Why? For the reason, because when you're expressing a prayer, you're basically begging. You consider the other person to be on a higher level. So you cannot, uh, express your negative emotions in that sense while you're begging. And prayers are mostly, but I personally think that prayers are lifeline, because without them, devotional life is not possible.
Good, very good. Thank you very much. I'm
And
happy.
the second exercise, there are services, Maharaj, we try to do. Some are little, some are big. But the big thing that stops us from doing services, or, is basically the pride. I can do it. Nobody better can do it than me. Nobody can do better than me. And sometimes you get so absorbed in it that the quality of service at times goes down, or your heart is not there in the service, or it doesn't feel that okay, you did a service nicely. I think that's the biggest impediment, not being able to cooperate with others. And often I think your past sinful activities, I don't know, this happens with me at least. I keep on, I cannot get rid of them. I keep on thinking, and I'm in an endless loop. Okay, how am I going to get forgiven for this? Will I be forgiven by Krishna for this things that I've done wrong? So ultimately, I come to a result that I will not be forgiven, and maybe I will not be able to serve, and I will not be able to go back. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your reflections on these very important, deep topics. Of course, Krishna is very merciful. So even if we think we may not be forgiven, but Krishna, he is so merciful. He gave shelter to a Jamil who had done so many sinful activities, and he was forgiven, and he went back to Godhead in that very lifetime. So that gives hope. Anyone else likes to share from their groups? We don't have the time to go that everybody shares their own, but if one or two more want to share with the group, you are welcome to do so.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. I would like to say, Maharaj, that I always pray, not in a proper sitting position or like that, but I always keep praying. Whenever I feel impediments in my spiritual life, especially, then the intensity is always there that I may be able to follow this and get a devotee association and like that. And about negative emotions, sometimes even I have negative emotions about the things or the situation or people around me. If I am in a circumstance where I'm not able to practice my spiritual life properly, then I tend to even I have a tendency to even curse people inside, in my head only. Yes, this person is not able letting me do this or that. So that is not the right thing, I know, but I try to improve upon that. But that also comes with me, that I tend to do that also. And with respect to offering services to Krishna, I'm still not on that level that I may be able to offer anything to Krishna for the sake of Krishna. I'm just practicing spirituality maybe only for my sake, because I want to practice it because Krishna is supplying me all the time and all the necessary situations which is required. Hence, I'm able to do it. I don't know what if the situations are on the other hand side. How will I manage? I don't know. I always keep praying to Krishna to give me all the support needed. Otherwise, I may not be able to do it. And I do it because it gives me so much of peace, happiness, and everything. But I'm not on that level that I can think of Krishna pleasing Krishna. But certainly it does give pleasure if we try to satisfy Krishna's senses. And there is a taste, little bit of taste, everything is there, but I'm not on that level.
Good. Good. Thank you very much for sharing your realizations and reflections on these topics. Anyone else likes to share?
Maharaj, what I was thinking that role of prayers in our life is that they give us strength. Prayers are very important in our life, and they give us strength that we may fall, or some things might not be going as per our likings. But as Brahma is also saying that Tattenukampa Susamekshamano, that just by your mercy, I'm trying, although I'm suffering from my past sinful reactions, but still a devotee is engaged with his body, mind and words, and he's actually the Daibhag, he's the rightful heir of liberation. And then what I the negative emotions, I was thinking that even Kunti Maharani is expressing a kind of negative emotion, that what I was able to understand, that she's saying that although I'm a woman, I am less intelligent, but still it was your causeless mercy that you were there with us, and I'm able to see you. So this is a kind of what I was able to understand, the kind of negative emotion in the prayers. And the principle that I personally apply in my prayers is helplessness, that feeling that although I am doing some activity, but I am not entitled for the results might not happen to me as per my desire. So whatever Krishna you desire, that should happen in my life. And then regarding the services, the defect what I was able to think is that one is that sometimes I personally tend to prioritize some other things over my spiritual practices. And the other defect or impediment is laziness, that there is so much time, I can do so much for serving Krishna, engaging, trying to become an instrument to engage others in devotional service, but due to laziness or procrastination, not able to do that. And then like how what I learned from scriptures and devotees, that what the result will be. So I was thinking about the example of, as you mentioned, of Ajamil, similarly Jagayan Madhaya, and we hear that Adosh Darshi Prabhu Mora Nityananda, that he doesn't see any faults. He's just seeing some spark is there to please Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or or like Srila Prabhupada has told that you just chant 16 rounds and follow 4 regular principles, and I will take you back to Godhead from the back door. So we see from these sacred texts that they are there for us, that they will protect us. Although we may have so many faults, but they will not see those faults. They will just see the small spiritual spark that we are having.
Good. So you are hopeful that the Lord Nityananda will give the mercy, and Lord Nityananda, Srila Prabhupada, and all the transcendental merciful personalities. Yeah, good. Very good. Thank you very much. Good. So I think we have completed all the content of the books. I don't know if you have any questions about the homework, because for the homework we can check. Let me check the handbook. From the handbook, I was looking here, but the open book assessment for each Upanishad, let me see, if we go to the last mantras, which we did today. Yes, you could go from page 117 . Yeah, you can choose from this, you can make these questions, and in page 117, this can be like homework questions for your own self-study. So from mantras 9 to 14, you can choose one of these, the one that motivates you the most, and you can do from mantras 15 to 18, choose another. You have it there on page 117.
Maharaj, like what handbook I have, the open book questions for Ishopanishad are on page 107.
Okay, let me see, but we already, I think we discussed that already the previous day, right? It's only 3 questions. And normally what the coordinators would tell you, you choose one or they give you one. I told you could choose, so.
Yes, Maharaj, yes, yes.
So this we saw the other day, so you can choose the question that motivates you the most. If you have to do one, or else if you want to do the 3, then you have everything. Depends on the time. Normally you are asked to do 1 question from the 3.
Maharaj, like in previous assessments, there were around 8-10 questions, so we were asked 2 questions. I think in this one, there are only 3 questions.
No, so I spoke to Yadunanadan Prabhu Maharaj last Sunday.
Yes.
So he said in Ishopanishad we have to do only one OBA. Because Ishopanishad and Nectar of Instruction constitute to one unit. So one question from Ishopanishad and one question from Nectar of Instruction for OBA.
And is he okay that you can choose? Or the question?
Vimla Prasad Prabhu messaged in the group today that he is okay to go by whatever your choice is, Maharaj.
Okay, so you can choose from these 3. You choose the one that motivates you the most.
Sure, Maharaj.
Okay, so I think we are done. It has been a transcendental pleasure to present Sri Upanishad to all of you, dear devotees, and I wish you all success in completing your Bhakti Sastri studies and in your respective services to Krishna and the devotees wherever you are, whether you are living in New Delhi and involved with a congregation in ISKCON Rohini or in any other temple in New Delhi, or Pakistan or England, wherever you are. And I am at your service. If there is anything I can do for you, please let me know. And if I can, I'll do that. I'm very small. I'm very busy here in Spain. But if I can do something, I'll be happy to serve you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you. It was our privilege that we had opportunity to hear from you. Thank you, Maharaj, for giving us your time.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare
All
Krishna.
verses. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Maharaj. Hare
much.
Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.